Hello everyone, it's Laura Lebo here, inviting you to check out my podcast, A Few of My Favorite Jews. Every 2 weeks, I invite an artist from the city of Toronto to come on and tell me who their favorite Jew is. We talk about that Jew's life, their connection to Judaism, my guest's connection to Judaism, and we just laugh. So if you love Jews and you love listening to exactly two people talk about them for about an hour, you're going to love my podcast, A Few of My Favorite Jews.
Hey everybody, we're the Benchwarmers. Welcome back to our bi-weekly podcast about Jews and sports. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Shalom Aleichem, everybody.
Happy
Jamie,
Victoria Day, I guess.
I guess it's Victoria Day. Did we miss Shavuos? I think we missed Shavuos.
We missed Shavuos. I don't know that there's a Jewish element to Victoria Day at all. I'm sure she said something terrible about Jews or did something marginally good for Jews, like by the standards of the late 19th century, but I don't really care about her.
For those listening who are not in Canada, we are recording this on Victoria Day. Traditionally,
is it
the
an
first
American
long
holiday
weekend of the
today?
summer.
Is it
they have Memorial Day?
I think it's next week.
But I think they're doing Memorial
week?
Day next week. Yeah, I think they're doing it next week. But it's to honor Queen Victoria. I think the two cities we have named after her in this country are not enough. And they have also given her a day, Victoria and Regina.
Is Regina after Queen Victoria?
I think it's Victoria. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, she would have been queen when it was founded.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's check in on some Jewish sports stories. I should say off the top, we have a really exciting interview coming up with Cody Decker, retired minor league baseball, brief Major League Baseball player, or briefly a Major League Baseball player as well, and who's had a long career involved with Team Israel baseball. He joined us for a really great chat about his career and all the things that he's been doing since he retired.
It was great. He's a really interesting guy, and sort of, I would say we told him this, but he's probably the most requested guest we've had so far.
Definitely.
And he's here, he was the mensch on the bench during the 2017 Israeli Baseball World Classic run, of which we all know so well, a large part of the film Coming Home, which we've talked about sort of ad nauseum, and we'll continue to do so until they make a movie about us.
Yeah, so I think this is like part two of, it's like a Twitter thread when they just go 1/N. Part two of an unknown number so far in our 2021 Israel baseball leading up to the Olympics series. And hopefully we'll continue to get some great guests who've been associated with Team Israel baseball in some way.
Absolutely. We'll get to Cody's plugs in a bit, but what's new in the sports world this week, Jamie?
Well, I'd like to note that I contributed a little bit to the Jewish sports discourse in writing for the first time for the Canadian Jewish News' website. I wrote an article about Tomer Hamed, an Israeli soccer player who plays for the Wellington Phoenix of the Australian A-League. Tomer scored 2 goals last week, and after the first one, grabbed an Israeli flag from a few supporters, and after the second one, took out a kippah and did the Shema.
And covered his eyes too. The full covered his eyes,
yeah. Which was, I think, as people noted, a really badass way to celebrate a soccer goal.
Is that the Jewish way of like the Michael Jordan closing his eyes during a free throw? Or I think it's Marcus Rashford who covers his eyes after he scores a goal, just to say like I could do this blindfolded.
Yeah, I think that's the next. It's a close thing. God is with me. And I can tell even with my eyes closed. Anyways, that led to some uproar in the Australia and New Zealand press about whether he should be sanctioned for this. He wasn't penalized any further, aside from getting a yellow card for putting on a face covering or head covering. That's apparently illegal. But he had no further sanction after that.
How else were they going to get the powdered wigs out of soccer?
Yeah. But the A-League has now banned supporters from bringing any flag to the game aside from the Australian and New Zealand flag, which seems like, obviously a targeted policy against the lone Israeli player to ever play in the league.
Who happened to do it.
Yeah, his team is aside from him and one Mexican player and maybe 1 or 2 English players, exclusively Australians and Kiwis. So it's not as though this is really happening for that many other people. And again, I think the point I make in the article, and I encourage people to check it out, there will be a link up on our Twitter, certainly, if not on the show page. The point is basically Jewish athletes are getting singled out here. Israeli athletes are getting singled out here. If you're an Israeli athlete, you're going to have to live with this double standard. And it seems that it feels like part of it is because he's Jewish, and part of his celebration was instantly
a
recognizable.
Prayer.
Yeah, exactly. A Jewish prayer that's instantly recognizable to all Jews. So I'll leave it there. I ask people, go check it out, share it if you found it interesting, and hopefully, Gabe, for you and both of us, you and I, there will be maybe a little bit more writing in the future on the CJN.
Absolutely. We say that staring directly into the cold eyes of our producer Michael, who is all business when recording this show.
He's making a sign. It says he's mouthing, "We have no money for that. We have no money for that."
We've an interesting Tomer Hamed fact, which I don't think you got to in your story, but Tomer Hamed has a reputation for being a bit of a tough player. He actually once got suspended when he was playing in the English Premier League for stomping on DeAndre Yedlin, another Jewish soccer player.
Yeah, so, a little instance of Jew on Jew sports violence.
The only two Jewish guys in the Premier League could probably find a way to find peace and work together against everyone else instead of stomping on one another. But I guess that's really a microcosm for Jewish people arguing with each other all the time.
Right. It's like the sports equivalent of, two Jews, three opinions. It's like
it's two Jews, three stomping red cards. Two Jews, three red cards.
Yeah. So Gabe, let's move on a little bit. Some other stuff that's been in the news. I thought we'd do a little rundown on Jewish interest in basketball and hockey as those go into the playoffs. Any notable Jews in the NHL playoffs that we should be thinking
playoffs, about? At least here in Toronto, Zach Hyman has made his return to the lineup, yet to make a score sheet impact, as I guess now it's game 3 right now. But Jason Zucker of the Pittsburgh Penguins is also playing in their game, and he has scored a goal already in this season, or in this postseason. So we've got Hyman, we've got Zucker.
And both of those is Pittsburgh the favorite to come out of the whatever that's called, the Metro Division?
The Metro Division, or I guess now it's called some sort of corporate sponsor because they've realigned for this year. But I believe they are. If they can get by the Islanders, it's a really spectacular season. And I feel like the Islanders are a team with pretty serious Jewish energy, even if they don't have any Jewish players right now. They've we're in Long Island for a while. They moved into the city for a couple of years, and you know what? Let's go back to Long Island.
They are. You're right. They had the typical New York, Long Island life, moving into the city for a few years in university, and then deciding to go back out to the suburbs, back out to
you know what? Massapequa was comfortable. Let's just go back.
On the round ball side of things in basketball, of course, the only Jewish player in the NBA, Denny Avdia, is injured, out for the year with torn ligament. But his Washington Wizards are, currently in the playoffs. They made it through the play-in tournament, and they're playing the 76ers, who are probably going to sweep them. But, if you want to get a glimpse of Denny on the bench, you might be able to do that if you want. The Wizards continue to have a big Hebrew Twitter presence, which is sort of amazing. Like, does their social media guy, is he a Jew who speaks Hebrew, or do they have a specific Israeli social media guy on staff doing their Israeli social media?
I wonder if they have, maybe they could have a service of an Israeli or two that will translate it all for them.
We need to look into this. We need to get some answers on this. Do some more reporting.
One sort of end of story, speaking of Long Island and sort of Jewish players at the end of the season now, the NHL's leading defensive scorer. So all of everyone who played in the NHL, the defenseman with the most points, who is off at the World Championship now because, his team, the New York Rangers, did not make the playoffs, is Adam Fox, a Jewish kid from Long Island.
Oh, wow.
Matter of fact.
What team does he play for?
He plays for the New York Rangers.
Okay. And they didn't have a very good year.
Jericho, New York. So, he broke down the walls of Jericho to the walls of Madison Square Garden.
And putting up a brick wall at the blue line.
Exactly. And has now sort of made himself a name, had his big breakout year. So we'll be watching Adam Fox for years to come.
And in, I guess, not necessarily sadder news, but marking the end of an era, Marv Albert has the great Jewish sportscaster has decided to call it a career after this year in the NBA playoffs.
Rejected.
That does remind me. We were talking about this before. along with his great career in announcing, Marv Albert is my therapist is an article by the actor Jesse Eisenberg that he wrote in the New Yorker.
Have you ever heard the audio version of it? You can listen to the audio version of it.
Yeah, it's great. He basically, Marv Albert is his therapist. That's the entire joke, and it works. It works really well.
It sort of goes with a oh, but doctor, she wouldn't sleep with me. Rejected type thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm unhappy. Yes.
Moving on to another bit of news. Jewish Canadian tennis player Denis Shapovalov, currently the number 14 in the world, has had a sort of up and down few weeks. He lost in the round of I can't remember if it was the round of 16 or maybe
to Rafael Nadal in Madrid.
Yeah, exactly. To Rafael Nadal in Madrid. He had a just brutal 3-set loss. He was up in the first set. Won the first set. Lost in the second after leading 3-0, and then ended up losing in tiebreaker to Rafael Nadal, who's of course the greatest of all time
on clay. Absolutely,
yeah. And then continued playing in the Geneva Open, made it all the way to the finals where he lost to Casper Ruud, and after that announced that he had a shoulder injury, which is going to prevent him from playing in the French Open at Roland Garros. So
Casper Ruud is a hell of a name.
Yeah,
is that Norwegian. 2 U's?
2 U's, yeah, real Norwegian.
Yeah.
But Shapovalov, again, after going from almost beating Nadal, which would have been the second time in his career that he's beaten Nadal, to not being able to play in the French Open, the next major on the schedule. Real bummer. Hopefully he's back for Wimbledon. I guess we'll see. I don't know if they've announced how difficult his recovery is going to be or how bad the shoulder injury. But sad to see for our biggest local rooting interest in terms of tennis. Obviously, Diego Schwartzman, the other main Jewish player on the circuit, is still around, and Aslan Karatsev, I think, will be making his French Open debut this year.
Oh, that's very exciting. Wow. Speaking of, I guess, France or the Mediterranean, this weekend was also the Monaco Grand Prix. In the world of F1, and very exciting news for
that's one of the bigger ones, isn't it?
That's it's sort of one of the oldest races. I think it's been run almost 75 times. If you've ever seen the film Grand Prix with James Garner, it's sort of focused around that race from year to year. And RIP Jessica Walter. But the Israeli Jewish driver, who's currently a backup driver for Williams and racing in F2, had his first career podium in Formula 2 in sort of the warm-up race the day before. Roy
good for him.
Nissany. So we're cheering for Roy, hoping he makes it to F1 someday soon. Especially he's racing under the Israeli flag, which is sort of rare to see. He's from Hungary, but I think he treats himself as an Israeli Jewish man, and was racing there. Also, Jewish and Canadian racing driver Lance Stroll has been made a meme this week from the race, as during an exciting moment in the race, a cameraman mistakenly switched to a photo of him that sat on the screen instead of the exciting part of the race. So now Lance Stroll's name has been synonymous with being distracted from the real action.
That's very funny. I guess going for a mental Lance Stroll in the park.
Exactly. And it's become a real meme over the last few days, classic highlights that are being interrupted with the smiling face of young Lance Stroll. Now that we've caught up on the world of Jewish sports, let's go to a man sort of at the center of it. We've got an interview coming up with Cody Decker. As we said earlier, a very requested guest, former first baseman and sort of unofficial team captain of Team Israel at the 2017 World Baseball Classic. Cody is a longtime man in professional baseball, worked with Team Israel in a lot of capacities, not working with them this year, as you find out in the interview necessarily. But he is currently living in El Paso, where he had some of the best years of his minor league career, and enjoying life as running a baseball factory. So let's get on to our interview with Cody.
Yeah, and I should mention ahead of time, my audio was not the best on this interview. I apologize to our listeners here, but hopefully you'll bear with us and stay tuned for a great interview.
We've had you've been an often requested guest, so we appreciate you doing this. Last week, we actually had who I assume is a friend of yours, Nate Fish, on the show.
Hate him. Can't stand him.
Oh, yeah.
Not true. I like Nate quite a bit. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I asked him if the King of Jewish Baseball title was like a divine thing, like who had to die to make him the King of Jewish Baseball.
It's one of those. It's not unlike Rocky Balboa. The Italian Stallion was not a term that was bestowed upon him. He just gave it to himself.
Right.
It's true.
Exactly.
Those are the best nicknames, I think.
Not to mention, I mean, the king of Jewish baseball, as much as there is a very short list behind him of people probably clamoring for that title, I don't really think anyone goes out of their way to let everyone know that they're Jewish all the time.
Well, that's a great place to start the conversation. It's almost like you've done this before. We're here with Cody Decker, former player on Team Israel, involved in the program this year and continues to as the team heads to the Olympics.
I am.
Well, I should say, you hosted a game of Team Israel playing in El Paso the other day, or you tweeted about it.
So close.
Okay.
I mean, there are aspects of this that you're nailing, but there's like a lot of things in between that are just a little
we should leave it to you then, Cody. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction and tell us a little bit about what's going on right now with your life?
Well, I retired in 2019. My name is Cody Decker. Hi, everybody. Cody Decker. I retired to take on a radio show with Odyssey. I've been with Odyssey for the last couple of years. I'm currently getting ready to rejoin Odyssey coming up pretty soon. And also on top of that, I am the associate executive director of a baseball and softball nonprofit in El Paso, Texas, called the El Paso Border Youth Athletic Association. The entire organization's goal is to get as many kids into college through baseball and softball. And El Paso, Texas has got a very low graduation rate when it comes to actual graduate as far as college education goes, and we're trying to fix that. And one way we're trying to do that is by changing the programming, the training, the academic process that is taking place here in El Paso, Texas. So our organization really is one-stop shopping. We also have the BIMO Elite Athletics that is also running out of our facility, the base. We have which is the top of the line strength and conditioning, throwing program, recovery program in the country. Joe Beimel, 15-year big leaguer, heads that out along with Brent Dean, who was my college roommate. I basically am training a lot of ball players right now, a lot of young ball players, but El Paso, Texas is a city that I kind of fell in love with a few years back. I played here in AAA baseball back in 2014 and 15. And after 2 seasons of playing in Tucson. And Tucson, as much as I love that city, we were playing in front of 400 people every night. So coming over to El Paso, Texas, playing in front of sold out 15,000 people, going crazy, baseball crazy, I might add. I went from playing that I could literally hear the lights in Tucson, buzzing, and coming out here to having my name chanted every single at bat. It was, I became very popular here, and I just fell in love with this place. The food, the people, the lack of traffic. I grew up in Los Angeles. It's just really, it really is a special place. But when I started looking at baseball programming and how many guys were getting into college in this city, and it's a big city, the numbers were just not there. It made no sense. It's not that kids are more or less talented because they're grew up in El Paso, Texas, rather than Los Angeles. It's just what's in front of them, what's available to them, and what's available to them here is very little. So our organization provides just about everything: the one-on-one training, the academic counseling. We try to make it as affordable and easy for everybody to get there, and also it's also handling the parents. A lot of kids these days. I don't need to tell you guys that every parent looks at their kids with rose-colored lenses. All their kids are stars, and they're all going to the big leagues. No, they're not.
I have a 6-week-old, and I'm not there yet.
Oh, you'll get there, but you're not there yet. But so much so that you got to understand, Major League Baseball is an organization that's been around for nearly 2 centuries, and we are maybe a week away from getting the 20,000th major leaguer in the history of Major League Baseball. That doesn't even fill up the bottom section of Dodger Stadium. Mm-hmm. That's just to put things in perspective on how many players have had one at bat in the big leagues.
That's amazing. Well, that's a very interesting mission. I mean, I think we see in the States or Canada a lot, the players who are coming up, who are the big prospects in high school or scouted for colleges, are increasingly coming out of the sort of more expensive prep school model. Guys who can afford, or kids who can afford to have that high level training from a young age that's sort of necessary. Or the other model you'd say in places like the Dominican Republic, where kids are scouted from a very young age and sort of put into a baseball academy where there isn't necessarily a focus on anything aside from baseball.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what you asked me before, what I did with Israel this last week, I'm not with Israel obviously anymore. I'm not playing on the Olympic team. I didn't get dual citizenship. They asked me to. I just wasn't able to do it. I started the show, and I basically said I just physically can't go to Israel for a month and get it done. But I did, as things progressed, it looked like when they were going to qualify, the organization that I worked for, Odyssey, they were very interested in me playing and possibly getting some content out of it. So I did offer to do it then, but then COVID hit, and it's all been an absolute mess. So I was never able to get dual citizenship to join them, but I still maintain a really great relationship with Israeli baseball. I mean, they are very near and dear to my heart. In fact, if you look right here, I got a poster of Heading Home, the Tale of Team Israel, right there in my studio.
That's great. Jonathan Mayo, I think, was our second guest ever on our podcast.
Jonathan Mayo is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. Great guest for you guys.
I agree. He was terrific.
Yeah, I couldn't say enough good things about Jonathan Mayo. But yeah, I have a great relationship with them. So basically, they told me they were going to have a spring training over in Scottsdale the moment the minor leaguers get out of there. And I just said, hey, Scottsdale is only about 5 hours from me right now. I have all these players who have never been looked at a day in their lives. So I just called, talked to Doug Liebman and Adam Gladstone. And, Adam Gladstone is like the mover and shaker with everything. There's something needs to be handled with Team Israel. You go to Adam Gladstone. And went to Adam, and we started talking and putting together this whole concept of putting together a 2-day exhibition over there in Scottsdale, giving them some good competition, giving them some good arms to face. They got players like Ian Kinsler on that team. They got guys like Danny Valencia, Ty Kelly, Blake Galen. Three of those names I just mentioned were big leaguers, but Blake Galen not, and he should have been. Blake Galen is one hell of a ball player, really, really terrific ball player. Mm-hmm. So this was an opportunity for a lot of our guys who were young, missed out on a full year of COVID and missed out on their first year of college playing at El Paso Community College. But this whole time they've been training, and now they came in throwing 82. They're all throwing 92. They're all have incredible secondary pitches that we've changed them as athletes. So we took them out there to play the Olympic team, 2 exhibition games, and I wanted to see if they can compete against some big leaguers, and they could.
That's great.
It was a true, wonderful thing to see. I was so proud of every guy I had out there. The Israeli team looks great. Guys that really came to mind when I was watching them throw. Zach Weiss looked incredible. Josh Zide looked great. Really excited for everything Blake Galen's going to do in that tournament. Danny Valencia homered. And they got Jake LeKind, who's an amazing left-handed pitcher. He's going to be starting the year out for the Lancaster Barnstormers, which is an independent team. These are a lot of talented ball players, and I think I'm hoping they do some serious damage over there in Japan when they eventually get a chance to play in the Olympics.
So you're probably in the best position to make this assessment. I mean, you were there in 2017 in Korea and Japan. With the World Baseball Classic team, the sort of the miracle Team Israel that made it further.
Miracle to who?
I would say miracle to fans around the world who I don't think as someone I was getting up at 3 a.m. to watch the games or whatever time I had to get up to watch the games. I didn't necessarily think that you guys were going to beat the Netherlands.
We did.
I didn't know that you guys were going to make it as far as you did, and I was someone who had faith. But
so the fun thing about that whole tournament is, we went in there as 200-1 underdogs. ESPN wrote an article calling us has-beens and wannabes, to which I'm like, are you kidding me? This is a group 1 through 9 who has a collective, and I'm not kidding, collective 1 through 9 better careers than everyone else in this tournament. Yeah, you got the superstars in LA. You got the superstars in the US team. You got the great players in the Japan team. Yeah, you got all those studs over in the Netherlands. We were a bunch of guys that have done nothing but play our asses off our whole careers, put up staggeringly good numbers, and constantly be told that we weren't good enough to stay in the big leagues. You had Ryan Lavarnway, who had plenty of big league experience. Nate Fryman had some big league experience. I only had 1 month, but at that point, I had 200 career home runs.
Sure.
It's just we were a bunch of guys that have gotten to the big leagues, but never were allowed to stay there. And we weren't exactly guys that got a ton of opportunity either. I got 1 start in the big leagues, just 1. That's not exactly much of a sample size for me to say that I can put together a great big league career. I know I can. I just need the opportunity to do so. Sadly, that opportunity never came again, but we were a team that we were laughing hysterically at everything that was posted about us, because we're like, these guys really have no idea that we're going to beat the hell out of all of them. And it's great because we know they just don't.
That is a great level of confidence to have. I mean, reflecting back on the 2017 team and seeing how it's shaping up out in Scottsdale now, how would you assess the current team's odds or chances going to the Olympics?
If we're talking about the Olympic team to the WBC team, we're kind of talking apples and oranges. It's not that the Olympic team is incredibly talented; they are, but the WBC team is all active players that are currently playing. professional baseball at the highest levels, where this team is a lot of young Israeli players, some independent ball players, and some minor league players, and a bunch of guys who played in the big leagues but are now retired. That does not, and in no way, shape, or form, I really want to stress this, that is not me saying they aren't good. Absolutely, they're good. They're going to go over there and do great. But the WBC to the Olympic side, you are getting I wouldn't say it's not a step down. That's not the right phrase, but it's certainly not exactly the same caliber that you'll get out of the WBC.
Right. It's a different pool of players that are sort of making up the roster. Everyone's very hopeful that the Olympics are even going to happen. I mean, it seems like a question mark, but maybe one that's it's going to happen one way or another. Who knows?
I'll keep my faith and keep it in the universe that it'll happen. That's my goal.
I think we have to The Secret it into continuing. And maybe I missed you saying this while I was tending to baby, but are you bullish on the team this summer?
Say it one more time.
Oh, I say, are you bullish? Do you expect them to medal?
I don't know. I mean, you got to understand there's some teams over there that are quite good. The team that really immediately stands out to me is Mexico. They're a really good ball club. They're going to win a lot of games. Obviously, Japan, what they're bringing to the table. Yeah. Korea got kind of embarrassed in the last WBC. So if they're going to be in this tournament, and I don't know if they are, I got to check the actual pool, but if Korea's in this tournament, you better believe they're looking to hammer out somebody, because there's some talent out there. And let's keep in mind, the U.S. still hasn't qualified.
Yep. And it's tight. I mean, it's only 6 teams. So, sort of anything can happen, and there's not that many games.
So I think Israel has as much of a chance as really anybody. And that's not me trying to play both sides. I really don't know. Olympic baseball is a very short sample size. Playing a tournament like that is a very small sample size. It's not like putting the odds on a major league team. It's a lot easier to do that. You just have to hope that they come out hot, and that's what it is. It's a short series, and you watched any major league series, you watch the Yankees take on the Baltimore Orioles. Yeah, the smart money is on the Yankees, but over time they're going to have more wins. But in that short 3-game series, the Baltimore Orioles could sweep them,
especially if Dean Kramer's pitching.
Especially if only if Dean Kramer's pitching.
I was going to say, let's go back to talk about you a little bit. I missed the mark on your current involvement with Team Israel, but you mentioned you had sort of a breath in the big leagues. You've played in Tucson, you've played in El Paso. I can't imagine what it's like playing in Tucson in July. When you can hear the lights, that must be another world of hot.
Be honest with you, it's not even the hottest city I played in. El Paso and Tucson are very similar, but it's nothing compared to, say, Phoenix. Phoenix is its own breed. And we were in Phoenix last week playing against Team Israel, and I was just telling guys, it's the same temperature here as El Paso, but it is not the same temperature. El Paso heat is, the sun's beating down you a little bit, but in Phoenix, it's every direction. It's coming at you left, right, center, from the ground, from the sky. Phoenix is located a quarter mile from the sun. I can't stand it. Cannot stand it.
It's a dry heat, they say.
And it always fools me. Yeah, you say that, but so did Bill Paxton's character in Aliens when he was just trying to be a dick. He just said, "Yeah, guys, but it's a dry heat." Don't be that guy.
I also find El Paso, and I've only been there once, and I loved it, but it actually had vegetation. Where Phoenix, it seems to be some sort of imported by some air conditioning company to prove that it's livable.
And it's also that thing, and this is just me. I don't know why. I just look, whenever I see every building and house look identical, I can't do it. It's just something about it just makes like, I have to leave. This is manufactured living. I have to go.
So let's go back to your baseball career a bit. When did you get drafted? Who drafted you? And what was your story?
I was a senior sign out of UCLA. I was, I had a very good career at UCLA. My first year, I think I only had about 60 at-bats, but I hit 5 home runs, hit about 300. Sophomore year, I think I led the Pac-12 in home runs. I hit about 314, something like that. My junior year was not the same. I had put a lot of self-inflicted pressure. Our whole team did, in fact. We were preseason ranked number 1. When you're a 21-year-old kid being told you're going to be drafted in the top 2 rounds, you're going to get paid all this money, and then all of a sudden you hit 1 week where all of a sudden you go 0 for in a game, and then it leads to 4 games. Next thing you know, you're like trying to sprint in quicksand. And I look back at that junior year as being the best thing that ever happened to me. I think I learned more about myself, more about baseball, in fact, in general. I had to make adjustments with my play. I had to make adjustments with my swing. And I believe my senior year, I led the nation in home runs, or at least I was close. I hit like 22 that year, 21, something like that. Ended up getting drafted in the 22nd round by the San Diego Padres, which is great because, I born and raised in Southern California. I I remember as a little kid, the first baseball camp I ever went to was, I think I was 6 years old. I went to Steve Garvey's baseball camp. And, Steve Garvey's number is retired 6, but I always wore 6 because of Steve Garvey. Even though my mentor growing up was Reggie Smith, he was my hitting coach. But for whatever reason, just because my first pro experience was with Steve Garvey, there was something in the back of my head that always had Steve Garvey that I always wanted to wear 6.
Might have been his hair.
Maybe. I might have been the arm hair. It was just so luscious.
He's a very like classic Hollywood guy.
Oh yeah, he's straight Clark Gable, side part, like very, very much a throwback. Still probably dyes his hair jet black because we just can't move on. But it's just I always dug that. But it was funny. I go to the Padre organization. I can't wear the number 6 because of Steve Garvey, which was the reason I wore the number 6, because the Padres, for reasons I'll never understand, retired the number 6, even though the majority of his career was a Dodger.
That's an interesting point. I never thought about that. If a number is retired at the big league level by a team, is it retired all the way through the system?
Depends on the organization. It was very strange. So early on, they let me wear 6. I wore 6 all throughout the minor leagues, and then one year we get to El Paso. I'm like, hey, where's number 6? I'm like, new policy, can't give it out anymore.
Wow,
it's retired throughout the organization. I'm like, oh, come on. I've been in this organization for 7 years. Steve Garvey was only here for 2.
That's some real inside baseball stuff.
Do you think for a second they were retiring your number?
It crossed my mind. I did own all their minor league career records. So, I still have them. If anyone wants to break them, please do.
We know you're a big trivia guy. I think the one piece of trivia about you that we figured out is, as far as we can tell, and having done the research that we did into it, you are the minor league Jewish home run leader, career home run leader, as far as we can tell.
Let's be real clear. It's not exactly, that's not the highest bar you could find. I mean,
well, it's not the highest bar, but there have been plenty of Jewish big leaguers, but
it kind of gets desensitized when you look at it, because Ryan Braun has been a big leaguer forever, and he has more major league home runs than I do have minor league home runs. So that kind of immediately knocks the good taste of that out of my mouth.
Fair enough. Cody, turning to something a little, I guess, less pleasant to talk about, but something that you've been outspoken about, is the issue of anti-Semitism in sports and baseball in particular. I know you spoke out about this last year when the Oakland A's coach, Ryan Christensen, gave a sort of, he didn't call it a Nazi salute, but it certainly seemed like a Nazi salute.
There's no sort of. It is or it isn't.
Yeah.
It was.
So can you talk to us a little bit about sort of your own experiences or anything that you've noticed in terms of changes or things getting better, things getting worse in baseball?
I haven't seen anything getting better or worse. It's not exactly something that I think Major League Baseball even has a thought of. The things I went through are probably the similar things that a lot of people went through. See, I grew up in Santa Monica, California, majority, very heavy Jewish community. Sure. So I didn't understand when I left Los Angeles at some point that, not everywhere else is like this. I'm somehow the odd man out, but my last name is Decker. Not a whole lot of people knew I was even Jewish. So it wasn't really something I had to deal with all that much. But then when people started finding out, then it became, a lot more comments about it, a lot more jokes about it. I remember one year, particularly in San Antonio, the chaplain wouldn't leave me alone. He was trying to convert me every Sunday. And it honestly made me to the point where I yelled at him, like, get out of my locker room. Do not look at me one more time. I'm going to punch out a chaplain.
How
fantasy of all of us everywhere.
Sorry, I guess integrated is, would you say, Christianity in mainstream baseball culture?
Beyond integrated.
There's prayers during
is family and faith night at every minor league stadium, at least like once a month, which means it's Christian night.
Right.
There's a chaplain sent to every professional baseball team every Sunday. I'm not even looking for, you don't need to send me a rabbi. I just need to you not to try to make me feel bad about going to chapel. And plus, I partied with those guys 3 days ago that went to chapel. They are all liars, every one of them. So
they have to confess.
Yeah, well, I guess they better. But yeah, it was just a lot of little things. Like I just remember the family and faith night going, guys, are we seriously this archaic? Like, there's no reason for this. Every night in minor league baseball is family and faith night.
Sure.
Like, there's no reason to put a banner on it. But it was just little things. I remember one time, this one wasn't little. I remember one time I played at Frisco, Texas, and my teammate was Nate Fryman, a fellow Jewish guy. And there was an article written, and it was, Nate and I loved the articles because it was just a hilarious concept, because it's like the greatest power hitting Jewish duo of all time is currently in San Antonio. I'm like, we're the only power hitting Jewish duo of all time. So I
also think it's somewhat to let them know that a Jew or two Jewish guys are coming to Frisco.
Yeah, well, a couple of them knew. Don't worry. So I had to deal with a lot of anti-Semitic comments that night. A couple of drunk frat boys behind the dugout. Gleefully throwing the word kike at me. It was just, they really, to the point where I almost jumped the fence, and the security had to get involved. And I got a very good apology from the Frisco Rough Riders, because of course they didn't it wasn't their fault.
Sure.
They acted as accordingly as they possibly could, but it was a very, it was a frustrating time. I remember going playing for the WBC team the first time in the qualifier. I think this was 2012. We had a bus. We couldn't get on the bus ever. It was a fake bus. They first had to have it sniffed out for bombs by dogs, and then we would all take separate cars, and the bus would go to the field, but no one would be on it. And that was like a scary reality. Like, we're in Florida, we're in Jupiter, Florida. That's basically Israel West. What is, and we have to make sure no one bombed our bus. Like sure. That it's a scary reality sometimes being Jewish in certain places. And, especially when you see a lot of unrest over there, especially right now. I mean, right now is probably arguably as bad as I've ever seen in our lifetime. There was a couple of years ago that seemed pretty bad, but this has been pretty terrible these last couple of weeks. So it's, so much so that even the idea of calling for peace can get you attacked.
Sure. Yeah, and, sports have always been a sort of distraction, and we root on the Israeli teams because, in large part they represent the biggest Jewish team there is, but one hopes there isn't a focus on Team Israel in the Olympics, either with baseball or other athletes, in terms of their responsibility or having to stand for everything that the country stands for necessarily, or anything like that. You just want to see these guys perform and be athletes.
And they are, and they're spectacular athletes, and there's a lot more to. And I think I can tell you guys this: our pride for Israel has nothing to do with nationality. It's so much more about just who we are. We're a part of a group that is, constantly been persecuted and attacked in our entire history of existence. And the fact that we got to go out and together and do something together. We had that bond that you don't really get. You don't get. It's not something that you can manufacture. You either have it or you don't. And this was a group of guys that just absolutely did, especially in that WBC in 2017. We were instant family, and you never get that playing baseball. They're supreme athletes. And and I think Israel to us is more about pride in who we are and respecting our own heritage rather than any type of nationalistic belief.
There's a moment in Stealing Home that you remind me of when I think it's Ike Davis talks about how he wasn't raised particularly Jewish, and he was sort of somewhat secular growing up, or not very much involved. But once he started, I think it was when he was playing in New York, and all of a sudden there were Jewish fans who followed him everywhere he went and became obsessed with him because he's the Jewish guy. And something that, other Jewish athletes have told us is, being Jewish, there's always going to be a segment of people that are your fans and your supporters, no matter what. And I think that connection exists not just between the players, but also between the players and Jewish fans.
It's something about, it's like when you go to a movie, like, the reason why you like going to see a movie starring The Rock in an action film is because you identify with The Rock. The Rock is you.
The Rock is Jewish?
No. But maybe. Rod Carew converted. I don't know. Maybe. But you go to a movie to, identify with the star. That's why all movie stars are so good looking, male and female, because you want to project what you think. Oh, that's me. I'm him. I am Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I think a lot of sports fans feel that way as well. They identify with a player on the field, and they can really. And Ike, because he's Jewish, that's something easy for a young Jewish guy to identify with. I was a kid that grew up in Los Angeles, as I said 47 times already, but like I grew up going to Dodger games. And when Sean Green became a Dodger, I loved Sean Green. I'm like, he's a Jewish star. I'm a Jewish young baseball player. Of course I identified with Sean Green.
Same for us. We grew up in Toronto, so we had the same. We had him before you did. Yeah. He was definitely the favorite. He was definitely the favorite of everyone here.
Sean Green was always the guy that like your friends would say they saw at synagogue. Like, like Sean Green was there on Yom Kippur this year. And like, you never knew if they were lying or not, but like, it could have been true.
Well, I've become friends with Sean Green since then. And like, he's still one of those guys that every time I see him, I still get kind of starstruck a little bit. I don't get very starstruck with people, for whatever reason. It's Sean Green and Eric Karros. For whatever reason, whenever I see those two, I'm like, thank you. You were my childhood. You were everything to me. Thank you. You were posters all over my walls.
So that's a great question. Were Sean or Eric, like, who was your favorite Jewish athlete growing up?
Probably Sean Green. I mean, I was a huge Sean Green fan, especially that one year. I think it was 2003 when he hit the 4 home runs in Milwaukee. I think he went 7 for 7, then put together, I think, like a 48 home run season, played in what a year that was. Sean Green was just an unbelievable player. And when you get to meet him, finding out just what an unbelievable person he is as well. They say don't meet your heroes. That is not the case with Sean Green. Meet your hero. Meet him.
So that's extremely cool. We're sort of coming at the end of our time here. We have listeners, and we'd love for the episode to be 2.5 hours long, but we understand you have other things to do.
I got nothing to do right
now. So are there any other, Jewish baseball players who are on Team Israel, out of Team Israel that, might be in the minors now that you've noticed, or somebody that, our audience might not have heard of, they should start paying attention to?
Well, there's a lot baseball right now. The baseball landscape, especially because of COVID, is really, really interesting at the moment. It's actually it's a dog eat dog world right now, even more than it ever has been. You got the cutting of over 47 minor league teams.
Yeah.
You got the draft reduced down to 20 rounds as opposed to 40. We're at the point right now where if I was playing this year, I might not be drafted. I got drafted in the 22nd round. It didn't matter my numbers. I was a senior sign. When you're a senior in college, you will not be drafted usually in the first 20 rounds because they don't have to pay you.
Right.
Then when you're a senior sign, you're going to get $1,000 before taxes, period. That's everybody's rule. So I got $638.43 after taxes. So I'm a guy that would fall in the draft. But guys that are already there right now, Max Fried, obviously focus on everything Max Fried is doing. He's a
little hurt right now, but he's definitely, he had a great year last year. I think he's going to duplicate it again soon.
I've known Max since he was a little kid. I'm absolutely so proud of everything he's done and going to do. I don't think he's even scratched the surface yet. So Max Fried is obviously the guy at the top of my list that I just say, you got to watch everything this kid does because he is special.
Yeah.
Other stories, I think we're going to see some interesting comeback stories. And there is one that I'm really hopeful for. Will it happen? I don't know, but I'm really, really hopeful for it. And that's Zach Weiss. Okay. Zach Weiss right now is a guy who is unsigned. I think he's getting ready to go play in Long Island for the Ducks. I faced him last week. He sat there at 93 to 96, incredible wipeout slider. He looked incredible. This guy belongs back in the big leagues. He belongs back in affiliated ball for the very, very least. Another good story might be Alex Katz. He just signed a minor league contract. And, Alex Katz has been a guy who's been around for a while and he had to go to low A. And you ask any guy who's been as high as AAA or even the big leagues, and he's like, hey, we got to send you to low A. That is a gut punch. That is one hell of a gut punch. But with him, he's excited and he went to low A and he immediately got moved to high A. He's going to be a guy that I think is just going to keep moving up. And the way the Cubs are right now, especially with their arms, they might need a lefty out of that pen. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get a Alex Katz appearance at some point, especially if the Cubs end up being sellers by the All-Star break. If they are, watch out for Alex Katz. But those are the two stories that right now I'm looking at in the minor league side. Zach Weiss, I'm just hoping gets an opportunity back in the affiliated baseball and then hopefully back in the big leagues. And Alex Katz, I think, is a guy who's going to move his way, hopefully all the way up to the show this year.
That's
great
amazing.
Tips.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we go, I want to tell you, I also loved El Paso. Had a great time there. You're based out of there now.
What a city. I go back and forth between here and Los Angeles, but I spend about 85 to 90% of my time in El Paso right now. I just absolutely fell in love with this city. It's the people are amazing. The food off the charts.
The food was incredible.
Yeah. It's the best food in the country. It's just ridiculous.
We also, I know this is going to sound weird, but my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. We went to a bar that had a records and vintage clothing store in the bar.
That's
it was
awesome.
just like, it looked like a dive bar. And then there was just all this cool stuff to buy.
They are. It's just a unique town, and they love their baseball here, man. This is a baseball crazy town. You go to a Chihuahuas game here. Oh my God, you're gonna witness something pretty special. I mean,
well, it's often talked about as a place that might get a major league franchise or a team move.
Never gonna happen in this city. No,
why
not gonna happen. Not enough people. There's about 14 more cities that will go above that. I think Vegas is going to be the one that's going to break through. I think they're going to get the A's. I think the Oakland A's will be the Vegas A's in the next 5 years. I think that's been
follow the Raiders. Yeah.
But I also think that's been planned for the last 15 years. I've also even seen where the idea of where they're planning on building the stadium. Are the A's going to build that stadium, or is somebody else going to build that stadium? I don't know, but I don't think the Rio is going to be around much longer.
But I was going to say, at the north end of town, that tiny stadium they have is so set up for
it's gone.
Major League Baseball. It's gone.
No, you got to go to the new stadium, the brand new stadium over by Red Rock. The Las Vegas Aviators play in a different stadium altogether, and it is stunning. The problem is you can't build upon it. They're going to have to build a new stadium. Every time they say a AAA stadium, we built it so we can build another level. They're lying. That none of them can take another level. Yeah. None of them. Not one.
As Blue Jays fans, we've sort of seen the limitations of AAA stadium. Salem Field in Buffalo has been okay for the last year, but it is a AAA stadium.
Sure. I have a theory that I still don't understand why the Toronto Blue Jays didn't do it. The Toronto Blue Jays these last 2 years, including this season, should be the Omaha Blue Jays. They should be playing at TD Ameritrade where the College World Series is. The stadium's not being used 11 months out of the year.
And
it's definitely been suggested.
Toronto in the name.
TD Bank, Toronto Dominion. Yeah,
it's right there.
Well, they've decided not to for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess they want to be sort of close in Buffalo.
I've been to Salem Field a lot. Back when it was Coca-Cola Stadium is like what I grew up remembering it as. It's beautiful. It's right in the middle of Buffalo, another underrated American city.
Great city. Great city.
We are out of time now. I want to thank you, Cody, so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We had a blast. We didn't get to talk about Radiohead, which was also on my list.
I would say Kid A is their best album.
I would agree with that. And the other thing was MJF. I know you're a wrestling guy, so been great to chat about Maxwell Jacob Friedman, but we'll have to leave that for the future. Not a fan.
I'm good.
Okay.
Cody, where can people follow you, find you, anything like that?
You can follow me on Twitter at Decker6, Decker and the number 6, or you can find me on Instagram, Anti-Hero Baseball, or of course my YouTube channel, also Anti-Hero Baseball. You can check out all the videos that I put out there, my prank videos, all my stuff that I did. Basically every ounce of torment that I put Jeff Francoeur through is on my YouTube channel. So check out Anti-Hero Baseball.
That's great. Thanks so much for joining us, Cody.
You guys are the best. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks again to Cody for joining us. Gabe, I gave Cody a little piece of trivia about his career during our interview. I have a little piece of trivia for you. Do you know whose 80th birthday is today?
It's my understanding is it's Bob Dylan's.
That's correct. Your baby's namesake, I assume.
Yes, that's right. Oh no, we named our baby after Dylan McDermott, the popular actor.
Are there Dylan songs about sports? Hurricane, sure. About a boxer?
That's a big one.
Any more? Catfish. Catfish is about Catfish Hunter, I think, right?
Interesting. I don't know of that one.
Catfish, it's on Desire, I think. Or no, it's not on Desire, but it's on one of the bootleg series. I don't know if it was ever actually released.
That era, the Rolling Thunder Review type era. Yeah. I was thinking, there could be some sort of like maybe Neighborhood Bully, which is about Israel. He was actually talking about the Canadian Olympic team.
Okay, sure.
There could be other things like that. That song's on the mind. I think perhaps Joker Man was about Sandy Koufax. I've heard that interpreted
I don't know
before.
if there's any ones that are other explicitly about sports, although I feel like there'd be other boxers that would be like classic Dylan heroes. Hurricane Carter was sort of a social justice hero of Dylan's, I think, or cause celeb. Not exactly down on his luck boxer kind of thing, but I feel like there's probably some other ones we haven't thought of yet.
That's a good question. You sort of stumped me with that one real quick. As you know, if there are any Dylan songs about sports, I'll have to take that away and come back next week.
Yeah, there is. I have one more. Joey, of course, about Texas Rangers first baseman Joey Gallo. That's a deep cut. That's a very deep cut joke for a niche audience, but please enjoy it.
Well, no, I think I just realized that Thunder on the Mountain is about the classic
Oklahoma City Thunder, Denver Nuggets series.
Sure.
Kevin Durant against Carmelo Anthony.
Sure, why not? Why not? Well, if anyone has any more Dylan songs, either slightly or definitely about sports, please send them our way. We are the podcast that ostensibly will talk about it.
Probably most likely to talk about it. I wonder if Bob Dylan's ever gone to a Met game. Like when he was in New York in the 1960s, like let's say the 62 Mets, they lost 125 games.
Yeah.
18-year-old Bob Dylan, I guess 21-year-old Bob Dylan at that point, would have been, 21-year-old Bob Dylan, young in New York, carrying his guitar. Think he ever took the 7 out to Shea Stadium to see, I don't know, who was on the 62 Mets?
No one good.
Old Willie Mays.
See, I would think that he'd be more likely to have gone to a Yankees game. But I guess the Twins existed in the early 60s, but they just started then. So he wouldn't have grown up a Twins fan or anything like that.
No, I don't think so. Or he probably went to see the Dodgers. Right. In LA a bunch when he was living in LA. And he went back to Minneapolis for a long time in the 70s. I could see him getting to know Harmon Killebrew a little bit.
Sure.
Just asking him about his name for a while.
Well, standing offer to Bob Dylan, if you're listening, feel free to come on the podcast. Tell us about your baseball fandom.
Yes. I'll ask if my personal theory on Tangled Up in Blue is about the Minnesota North Stars facing the Toronto Maple Leafs in the late 1970s.
That's great. Why don't we leave it there for now? Until next time, you can follow us as always at the Menschwarmers, at Menschwarmers on Twitter. You can read my recent piece on the Canadian Jewish News at thecjn.ca and follow all CJN projects at the CJN Lounge on Facebook. Please like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
And we'd be remiss not to mention the new and improved website that the CJN has put up at thecjn.ca. It looks great. We're so happy to be a part of it. And thanks to our producer, Michael, for all of his hard work on this show.